The air inside the city council chamber was heavy and stagnant, clinging to the walls like a desperate secret. Melanie Burke stood at the podium, her presence both authoritative and weary. She was a public servant by day, a woman navigating the complexities of municipal governance. And yet, there was an undeniable vibrancy to her that felt stifled by the drab surroundings. A colleague leaned in, his voice a low hum that barely rose above the murmur of the crowd. He remarked upon her double life, calling her a public servant by the light of day and a hottie by the darkness of night. Melanie offered a faint, tired smile. She replied that she was forced to activate the heating system during the daylight hours, or else absolutely nothing would ever be accomplished in such an environment. The agenda for the council meeting was lengthy and contentious. The primary topic of discussion centered on a proposal to limit the class size in elementary schools to exactly 22 students. However, the atmosphere shifted rapidly when the conversation turned to sanitation. A persistent, unpleasant odor had been drifting through the halls, a direct consequence of the garbage piling up in front of the local restaurants. Melanie had recently authorized a reduction in trash collection services to exactly one time each week, a fiscal measure intended to secure the funding necessary for the smaller class sizes. A man, agitated and visibly furious, stood in the center of the room. He held a bag of waste, his face contorted with indignation. Melanie watched him, maintaining the composed, rational demeanor of an adult, despite the chaotic energy radiating from the man. She felt the weight of the moment pressing upon her. She urged the man to behave like a gentleman, reminding him that the public arena was not the place for such displays of aggression. Her mind wandered, briefly touching upon the whereabouts of the money that her brother-in-law had stolen. The thought was a sharp, nagging pain. She turned to the room, asking if there was anyone present who did not possess a relative they were less than proud of. The room sighed in collective agreement. It was a shared burden. Even the errant brother-in-law, she conceded, had been somewhat attractive. Her colleague noted that she had held her own, reminding her of her father, the esteemed senator. A flash of memory returned. Had she smelled like a performer at a club? No, the colleague reassured her. She had smelled of authority. It was her signature scent, she thought with a flicker of pride. As the meeting concluded, the focus had shifted away from the garbage crisis. Aunt Melanie returned home, weary and craving peace. However, upon arriving, she found her niece, Lennox, and her nephew, Ryder, waiting for her. The house was not the sanctuary she had hoped for. A political debate was raging within the community, and it had spilled over onto her front porch. Several bags of refuse had been discarded there, a tactile reminder of her political unpopularity. Lennox, with the sharp insight of a teenager, pointed out that the situation was becoming quite heavy and, more importantly, truly malodorous. Melanie attempted to connect with Lennox, noting the new furniture she had placed in her room. Lennox was dismissive, insisting that she was fine with her suitcases. It was clear that the girl viewed their living arrangement as a temporary inconvenience. Melanie lamented the loss of their former closeness, the days when they shared secrets and dreamed of matching tattoos. She was now viewed as a monster for the simple act of providing furniture. The next morning, the household was in disarray. Melanie was preparing to leave for an evening out, her first date since the children had moved in, and she was nervous. She debated her wardrobe choices, wondering if a particular dress signaled intelligence and a bright future, or if it hinted at the former bad girl she had once been. Then the phone rang. It was the school principal. Lennox had been suspended. The principal explained that Lennox had distributed flyers containing an original poem that rhymed the name of the principal in a highly creative, yet deeply disrespectful manner. Melanie was stunned. 2 months of guardianship, and this was the result. She realized, with a heavy heart, that she could not manage everything alone. She needed help, perhaps a professional, someone who could bring structure and discipline to this chaotic life. She contemplated the possibility of hiring a nanny. Enter Joseph Longo. He appeared at the doorstep, a man who had once navigated the high-stakes world of commodities trading but was now untethered, having lost his job, his condominium, and even his automobile. He approached Melanie with a proposition. He proposed that he could manage the household, utilizing his professional skills to bring order to the chaos. Melanie was skeptical, viewing him as an eccentric, yet she was desperate. The integration of Joseph into the household was not seamless. He was brash, opinionated, and lacked the conventional polish of a nanny. Yet, he possessed a unique ability to reach the children. When Ryder was struggling with his history paper, refusing to complete the work, Joseph did not coddle him. He brought the boy home, insisted he write the paper, and did not permit him to leave his room until the task was finished. It was an unorthodox method, but it was effective. Lennox, meanwhile, remained defiant. She had refused to apologize to the principal, viewing the system as inherently corrupt. Joseph intervened, not by lecturing her, but by speaking to her as an equal. He challenged her perceptions, urging her to see the situation from a different perspective. He eventually convinced her to apologize, not because it was what the authority figures wanted, but because it was the honorable thing to do. As the days turned into weeks, the dynamic within the house began to shift. The constant friction between Melanie and Joseph transformed into a grudging respect, and occasionally, a flicker of genuine affection. They found themselves working in tandem, navigating the turbulent waters of raising teenagers. Joseph discovered that his past experiences, while painful, had prepared him for this role. He learned that the most complex commodities to manage were not the financial assets he had once traded, but the emotions and aspirations of the people in his care. Melanie, for her part, realized that she did not have to carry the weight of the world upon her shoulders. With Joseph, she felt a sense of relief, a partnership that allowed her to breathe. The house, once a site of constant conflict, began to feel like a home. The trash on the porch was replaced by open conversations. The tension that had defined their lives gave way to a rhythm of shared responsibilities and mutual support. There were still challenges, of course. Teenage life remained unpredictable, and the demands of public office were constant. Yet the atmosphere had changed. There was humor, there was patience, and above all, there was a commitment to the well-being of the family. The children, Lennox and Ryder, began to see Melanie not just as an aunt or a guardian, but as a person who genuinely cared for their future. And Joseph, the man who had lost everything, found that he had gained something far more valuable, a place where he belonged, and a family that relied upon his strength. They continued to navigate the complexities of life with resilience. Joseph became a fixture, his presence a stabilizing force. He taught them that while life might be unpredictable, one could always choose to respond with dignity and humor. He helped them understand that mistakes were not permanent failures, but opportunities for growth. Melanie, inspired by his outlook, began to approach her work with a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that her goal was not just to manage the city, but to improve the lives of the people who lived within it. The household became a sanctuary. They shared meals, discussed the events of the day, and supported one another through the inevitable ups and downs. The fear that had initially gripped Melanie, the fear of failing as a guardian, slowly dissipated, replaced by the confidence that they could handle whatever the future held. The story of their lives was not one of perfection, but of perseverance. It was a testament to the idea that family is not defined by perfection, but by the commitment to stay together, to forgive, and to move forward. As they sat in the living room, a quiet sense of contentment settled over them. They had walked a long, winding road to arrive at this point, but it had been worth every step. They had learned that the most important lessons were not found in books, but in the interactions they had with one another. They had learned that kindness, when practiced consistently, could transform a house into a home and a group of individuals into a family. Their journey was ongoing, a series of chapters yet to be written. There would be more challenges, more disagreements, and more moments of uncertainty. But they were no longer afraid. They had found their footing, and they were ready to face the future together. In the end, they realized that they had created something truly beautiful, a life built on the foundation of love, understanding,